Joey, what's up, man? Welcome to Dad Edge, dude.
Larry, good to see you, man.
Good to
Been a
see you
while.
too. It's been a minute, man. It's been a minute. I want to start out with I'm gonna ask you a question. It's not scripted. Actually, none of my questions are ever really scripted.
Right.
Um, but I want to ask you a question just right out of the gate here. Okay. And
Yeah.
I just want you to give me, and there's no pressure to be like, oh my gosh, this is a huge question. It has to I just want you to just share whatever's on your heart. Okay. What do you think is the most important aspect of being a father who leads well, and connects with their kids?
My answer, and I've learned this. So my son is 16 in a week. He passed the driver's test last Saturday, so he's coming up on it. My daughter's 14, and the thing that I have realized over 16 years of being a dad is I think you can mess up a ton of stuff, and it can all be made up for with full presence. And on the other side, you can get a lot of things right, and you can lose all of it in an instant without being fully present. And so to me, as much as I can, especially as my kids get older and their personalities are coming out, I'm just finding like I got to hang with them and figure out what they love. My daughter loves Taylor Swift. And bro, I've been freaking wearing out the Tortured Poets Department album with my daughter. I heard this, and this
You're a Swiftie.
I'm a Swiftie. And here's what's great. So there's a guy named Andy Crouch who wrote a book called The Tech Wise Family. He's a super great guy. I was talking to Andy, and he's just like this sage. And I said, Andy, what is a life of love? What does that mean to you as a dad? And he said one of the most profound quotes, and it was off the cuff. He said, a life of love is being so attentive to somebody else that that's what is best for them becomes what's best for you. So let's use Taylor Swift. I don't particularly love Taylor Swift naturally, right? My daughter loves Taylor Swift. And so what's best for her has just naturally become what's best for me. Like that's the thing, is being there, being present, listen to Taylor Swift, not force my own agenda. My son and I, luckily he loves Braveheart and Dumb and Dumber and all the stuff that I love. So that makes it a little bit easier. But dude, I think it's just being there. And I have a tendency to want to push my own agenda, but just being there, I have found, as simple and as cliche as that may sound, is that's been it for me.
I love that, man. Well, okay, let me ask you this. What is your view of Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift?
Well, my wife was born and raised in Orchard Park, New York. And for football fans, you know that the Bills Stadium is in Orchard Park, New York, outside of Buffalo. So we are Bills fans in our home. And in Knoxville, Tennessee, we're probably the only Bills flag that flies in Knoxville, Tennessee. So we are avowed just haters of the Chiefs, right? So there's nothing about Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift that I find in any way fun just because they beat the Bills every year in the playoffs.
Oh my gosh. So my we're here in St. Louis. So
Yeah.
we lost our Rams. So, and that's a sour, bitter thing here, man.
Stan Kroenke. Don't bring up Stan Kroenke in St. Louis, right?
No, yeah, you don't. Because the thing is, man, we are a sports city.
Yeah.
I mean, we love our baseball. We love our Blues, right? We got soccer right now. And I'll tell you, man, this city went electric when we got a soccer team. Because soccer's a really big deal here in St. Louis, and you wouldn't think it would be. Yeah, it's huge. And then, but I'll tell you, St. Louis, man, we're huge sport. We're a sports nut city. And here's the cool thing too. Any athlete that played for the Cardinals or the Blues or whoever else, right? The feedback that those athletes have, I've always heard this with even my own interviews, because I had Todd Stottlemyre came on. He's a 3-time World Series pitcher, and he played for St. Louis for a while. And he said this. He's like, I'm not just telling you this because you're a St. Louis guy. He goes, but when these professional athletes, he goes, because so many of us say this, when we say that St. Louis is one of the greatest cities in the world to play for on a professional level, is because the fans in St. Louis are so loyal.
Yeah.
They are so kind, and they support so much. And even when Albert Pujols left, and he went to play for the Angels, I mean, dude, that crushed St. Louis. But still, when we would play the Angels, every time that man would come up to bat, we would give him a standing ovation. And I think there was actually 1 or 2 games where he just completely crushed a home run against us. And the entire stadium erupted and cheered for him. Like, that's how loyal we are. So it's kind I know we kind of are digressing a little bit on a different topic, but I mean, we're dudes. So
I can do this. Right? I can believe me. I can do this all day long.
Yeah,
we can talk. So let me ask you, has St. Louis, have y'all like gone over to the Chiefs, or have St. Louis fans, have they become Chiefs fans, or is it still kind of like, no, you stay on your side of the state, we'll stay on ours?
You know, I think it's like a mixed bag, you know. Okay. I mean, I think, you know, they've won the Super Bowl, you know, a few times and that kind of thing. And I think if St. Louis is going to be watching any football team, it's going to be the Chiefs. Okay. I think a lot of them do that. It's funny though, man. Like I'm, you know, like my boys, like, I don't know what it is. Like, you know, they love the Chiefs, but going back to Taylor Swift, like, especially my 16-year-old who's the center for his varsity team. Nice. He's just like, man, Dad. He's like, he's just not the same as he was before. You know, he's just like, I'm like, well, I mean, come on, he's got a girlfriend. But anyway,
it's so true. It is funny how, exactly. It seems like, I think everybody was waiting this year. Everybody wanted so badly for him to just lose a step and not be as good, because they wanted so badly to blame it on Taylor Swift, but he's still freaking Kelsey, man. That guy is an absolute animal.
Yeah, he's a savage. He really is. He really is. But yeah, you know, so well, okay, so you got 2 kids. How long you guys been married?
Bro, June 6th will be 20 years. So we're coming up on it. I know. Yeah, I got married. What? So I'm 43 right now. So we got married young. We dated in college, got married a year out of college. So yeah, man, 20 years. That's a long time to be married.
You know, so we celebrated 20 years last year.
Nice.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, you know, I think if you do it right, and I will say I didn't do it right for a really long time.
Yep.
Like I always say it's a miracle I'm still married, because my wife, luckily I'm married to a very patient woman. So all you guys out there who are listening, like, and you having marital issues, and sometimes you think like, oh man, I'm on my own. Like no one understands this. Like everybody else is killing it in marriage. Like, no, we're not. Like, no, we're not. Like we're all just trying to figure this thing out. But I will tell you, you know, over the past at least 7 years, like, cause it was about right around the 10-year mark. That's when I started Dad Edge. And I'll tell you, man, like that was a turning point in our relationship, because it was right when I was just like, okay. And it really boiled down to this. I don't know about you guys, but because I know that connection is a huge piece for you and your wife and your family, like obviously with what you do. And I want you to talk about that.
Yeah.
But for us, like it was literally like, oh, wait a second. So if I can learn like the skill of connection and intimacy and communication and all these things, just like I would learn anything else. Like if we learn how to work out, we learn if we want to fix a car, we can learn how to fix a car. If you want to play piano, you can learn how to play piano. And the funny thing is the best relationships in our lives with our wives and our kids, it's really, I have found that it is no different. If you're okay with like, hey, I don't have this all figured out, but I'm willing to learn. It's amazing what you can learn, implement, and you're like, oh my gosh, this actually works. But yeah, what about for you guys? I mean, what's been a key measure of success for you guys? Like, not many people can say, as you know, that they've been married for 20 years. How'd you guys get here?
Well, one thing to piggyback on what you're saying about yourself, I love that you're looking at, it's almost like we look at marriage in a different way from any other task that we approach as guys. And we do, like, we approach things from a pretty much a pragmatic perspective. And what are my KPIs, and what are all the things I have to achieve? But marriage seems like such a different thing. And I think a lot of it is because, and I learned this more and more, Larry, is that women really do just speak a different language. I mean, it is fascinating that any of us, to your point, any of us have stayed married, and I've messed it up again and again and again. I've done things so wrong and so poorly. And there's a certain, I'm going to roundabout answer your question, but there's a certain period of time I believe you get in marriage. And I don't know if it's an age thing or if it's a stage of life or where your kids are, but let's just call it 35 to 45 years old. And I heard a guy say once, and he was in a bad divorce at the time, so take what he said with a grain of salt. He said, I've never met a happily married man who's 35 to 45 years old. And
Oh, really?
I don't say that like to bring somebody down. I actually say it as a comfort to you. That is freaking wartime. Like, you are 35 to 45, your kids are young, you are in wartime. And so you just handle things just like anything else. A country handles peacetime and wartime a little bit differently. And if we as guys could just say, okay, this is wartime. But what's interesting about the wartime is it's not like a big heroic moment for us to step in and paint our face and then, like, you know, like win a battle. These things actually show up to us, I think, in a lot more, like, more monotony. And it's just like, okay, I just got to get through. And how can I instill some romance? And how can I make sure that okay, let me get my date night in. And the one of the best moments I had, this was probably 7 years ago, not at a not great time in my marriage. And I was reading a book called Hamilton, about Alexander Hamilton, by a guy named Ron Chernow. It was a super thick book, and it was really boring. Like, this book was like, this dude was really trying to prove himself with all the big words he knew. And even being a relatively smart guy, I had to look up half of them. And so I'm getting through this, and I wanted to quit reading this book probably like 30 times. Like, it's so boring. Like, I don't see how any of this comes together. But I pushed through, and as I'm reading the last page of the book, I see the whole story of Alexander Hamilton's life. I see how it all came together. I see how those moments of monotony all came together. And I saw how the full story of his life. And I'm sitting there with tears running down my face, saying to myself, I'm so glad I finished this book. And to me, that was just such a metaphor for marriage, is that we are basing all of these things, how we feel today at 40, you know, me 43 with a 16-year-old or 14-year-old, or a 37-year-old guy with a 6-year-old and 4-year-old and 2-year-old. We're basing we're trying to almost come up with all these conclusions, and we don't have all the parts of the story yet. We will see someday how all of it came together. And so, guys that may be in it right now, this is just an encouragement to you from two guys who have felt it. Larry, you just said it, two guys who have lived it. It's worth pushing through. And I know there are extenuating circumstances. I know there are other things. So don't, set aside the outlying case, but it's worth pushing through. And so to have this 20-year anniversary and looking at my wife and just say, hey, we pushed through some crap, and we pushed through some boring times, and we pushed through some really tough times and transitions and all that kind of stuff. So that's not a way to answer your question. It's more of an encouragement. If I were to take it very practically, I would say one thing that we are starting to get good at is just kind of old people stuff, taking a walk every night, right? Taking a walk and decompressing. I don't have a need, despite my long answer here, I don't actually have this need to talk a lot. My wife does. And so just kind of sitting there, listening to it, learning from me to be a little bit more stoic, not being as quite rise and fall, just kind of like internalizing what she says before I react, and kind of being a strong, safe place. And then getting in as many date nights as we can. I would say if we can get in a date night or a date coffee once a week, once every couple of weeks, that's huge. So those are a couple little tips and tricks. But the other thing is just what I started with is just not quitting, just continuing to push through in what may seem like a situation that may last forever if you're in a difficult period.
I mean, I love that. The thing I really picked up from you was being consistent with doing the right things, right? Like, I like those weekly date nights, or just knowing like, hey, we're in a rough patch, or we're in a season where we're a little bit off or whatever, but seeing it through and being consistent, despite the challenges. Because I think what a lot of people do is we just sort of like raise up our hands and we're like, yeah, it's not going to work out. It's just not in the cards for us or whatever. And we just tend to then disconnect and disengage. But it's doing the things that you don't maybe feel like doing, or you think that there's going to be some sort of roadblock. I like to always compare just about everything to fitness. I mean, fitness was actually my background. I actually got a degree in exercise or sports medicine with a minor in nutrition. And so like, that's like a really tangible thing for me to always compare it to. But like, there are days where you go through a season where your body just doesn't feel great, and you don't feel like training, but you're like, I don't feel like training, but I'm going to go in and I'm going to train for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And you know what? It will probably suck, but I'm going to go in and I'm just going to move my body. That's it, period. Right. But just staying versus what I think a lot of people do, especially like the New Year's people, right? They'll be like, I'm going to go all in. They're like there for like 3 weeks, and then you never see them again.
Yeah.
And instead of like just being diligent to the process of continuing to level up your marriage and continue to pour into it, despite seasons where you don't feel connected, or seasons where things are just troublesome or whatever. Doing the things that are consistent is so important. That's definitely a good advice for us. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, it's my friend Chris Hart, who runs a coaching group called the Brave Group. Chris talks about the story. I believe it was two competing expeditions to, I think it was the North Pole or South Pole. So two competing expeditions, and they had two different theses. The one group said, hey, when the weather's great, we're going to push through as many miles as we can. When it's not great, we're going to hunker down, we're going to wait it out, and then wait for good weather, and then freaking plow through. The other one said, no matter the conditions, we're going to do 20 miles every day. We're going to do a 20-mile march, 20-mile march, 20-mile march. And it won't shock you to hear that the 20-mile march group is the one that made it. The other one wasn't conditioned for bad storms because they weren't traveling in it. And so when it became a multi-day thing, that whole expedition group died as a result of it, as opposed to the 20-mile guys. We're going to take ground every single day, and we're going to take 20 miles. And to your point, we're going to be consistent over the long haul doing the right things.
I think that's huge. And it's right in line with what we're going to be talking about today. Yeah. Let's start with this. Remind me and us, what does Aro even mean?
Yeah. Aro is a term from the Maori language and the Maori culture, and it means to notice, which I think is such a beautiful picture of what we've kind of lost over the last few years. And this is, by the way, none of what we're saying here is we're not pointing out smartphones and technology as the villain. We like our phones. We like technology. However, we as a society have in the midst of it, whether they've taken it or whether we've given it to them, we've lost our ability to notice what's happening all around us. And an alternate definition is to turn towards. So let's take it back to the marriage example. The Gottman Institute says that successful couples who remain married, they turn towards their partner's bids for emotional connection 86% of the time, while couples who don't make it only turn towards their partner's bids for emotional connection 33% of the time. So we have this thing in our pockets with us 24 hours a day. 91% of us have our phones with us all the time. We have our phones with us all the time. And that is making it literally physically unable to turn towards our partner's bids for emotional connection or our kids' bids for emotional connection. But it's also the emotional, like we're not emotionally able to do that. We're just not seeing what's happening around us. So our goal with Aro is let's make it easy to put down your phone so that we can notice those things happening. Not just with our partners, not just with our kids, but maybe for us, like we've just kind of had a crappy day and we're like, why am I so pissed off right now? Like, let me take a moment of reflection to notice what's happening inside. And let me maybe do a little bit of repair work. I think for guys, sometimes we don't really want to do that. Maybe that feels a little bit fluffy or something like that. But I think when we can do that, we can actually show up better for the people around us that we care about most. And so for us, Aro is this ability for us to notice the most important relationships, the most important things happening all around us.
I love that, man. I could not remember for the life of me what the word meant, because so many people have asked me, well, what does Aro mean? And I was like, I think it's and I butchered it. I was like, I think it's a Greek term for connect. I don't remember what it is, but I just know it has to do with the mission of Aro, right?
Yeah.
And I love that, to turn towards. So like every time I put this phone in my Aro box, I'm going to think of turning towards. And I love your analogy too. I love Gottman. Yeah. And the guy's brilliant. Like he is like the Yoda of marriage,
no
right?
Kidding. Incredible.
You want to hear a really funny story about cell phones. So, I'm actually, this is the first time I'm going to be announcing my Aro time, my time away from my phone.
Let's go.
For up until up to 2024. And I'm so upset because I'm very proud of the time.
Yep.
But it would probably be double what I'm going to announce, because I didn't know that you could actually do Aro time without the Aro box. Like you could like literally just be on the app, click the button, turn it upside down. And know that I was like, because dude, there were times I would just leave my phone at home. Like I wanted the Aro time so bad that I would just leave my phone at home. But then at times where I'm like at my kid's game or whatever else, I'll be like, well, I'll just leave it in the car, and I'll make a mental note that, like I got some Aro time in, even though it's not going to be on my app. But funny story is this. It's funny, not funny. So I have a son, my 10-year-old played soccer last year, and I would always leave my phone in the car. And I'm sitting next to this woman in the stands. And now granted, this is learn to play soccer, for 10-year-olds, right? So it's like, it's not like they're out there select team, travel team. It's learn to play, but still it's hilarious and fun to watch, right? So there's a woman sitting next to me, and her kid, it's all indoor. So he's like banging on the glass, or whatever that is, right? In the indoor field. And we're all the way up on the top bleacher. We're only like 10 rows up, because that's about as big as the bleachers were. And the glass is thick, so you really can't hear it. So you have to be watching. So he's banging on the thing, and I'm like looking at him, and he's looking at me, and I like pointed to his mom. I was like, "Is this your mom?" And he's like, "Yes, that's my mom." So I said, I nudged her. I said, "Excuse me." I said, and she's like, and she looked up at me like I pissed, like I annoyed her, like, "You're taking me away from something." And she looked at me. She's like, "Yes." And I'm like, "I'm sorry to bother you." I was like, "Your son's been banging on the glass." I was like, "He's trying to get your attention." I was like, I was like, "It's actually the third time he's done it." I was like, but he nudged me to nudge you." And she's like, and then he's like, "Hi." He was so excited, like out there. And she's like, "Uh-huh." And she looks at me and she goes, "Weirdo." And I'm like, "Oh." And I'm like, "Are you?" And then she goes right back to her phone. And then the kid is like, goes up to the glass like 4 or 5 more times, banging on the glass, trying to get her attention. She's not even budging. And I nudged her one more time, and it just annoyed the hell out of her. So I'm just like, "Okay, well, you're making your own bed here. I'm not going to help." But here's the thing too. You know what? Minus the weirdo part, right? I never call my kid a weirdo, but I think the reason that pissed me off so bad is they used to be me. And truth be true, I will be honest, truth be told, like, those are still the bear traps I fall into from time to time. I would say I'm better about it, a whole lot better, and way more aware of it because of the habits I've picked up from Aro. But it's, I think the reason it pisses me off so bad is because it's a mirror, for me sometimes. And it's just like, "Ugh, God, you suck." You meaning me.
Yeah.
Right. So,
Well,
but that's the story.
It's heartbreaking, and it's so easy to see in somebody else. But bro, I think I've shared this story with you when my son Harrison was 5, who again, he's almost 16. He's my freaking bro now. He's the best. But when he was 5, he scores his first soccer goal. And the very first thing he did was looked over to me to have this moment with me, right? To see the smile on my face and the pride on my face. But all he saw was the top of my head, because I was looking down at my phone and I missed this soccer goal, this one first soccer goal ever. You get one first soccer goal and that was it. And I missed it. And so this, as we talk about any of this, like, this is no judgment. It's like what you said. I see myself in that. That's why it hurts, because I think, like, how many times, and what's interesting about it is how many times are we missing things we just don't even know that we've missed them. Like that for all that woman knows, he banged on the glass twice, that kid did, but it was probably 10 times, right? To your point. And so it was because of this own struggle and recognizing my own propensity towards distraction and my own propensity towards being immersed on my phone, because youth soccer games, learn to play soccer, that's kind of boring, right? And that's okay to say, but you think about what we're instilling in them, because what we should feel like, everybody, it's interesting, is we talked to a bunch of dads, like, we hear a bunch, they say, "Oh yeah, my kid always tells me to put in my phone." I mean, from a very young age, "Daddy, put on my phone. Daddy, watch me." These daddy watch me moments, right? So these are all around us. And if we feel bad, you can feel condemned when you hear that, like, "Oh, my kid always asks me to put on my phone." That kind of, your initial reaction is kind of feel like crap, like I'm screwing up. But if instead you looked at that and said, "No, this is really good news. And here's why it's good news, for 2 reasons. One of them, my kid really likes me." They wouldn't say, "Watch me, Daddy," if they didn't like me. So that's good that your kid likes you. That's not always, that's not always a given. But the other thing is, your kid believes that they're valuable. When they're asking that, they're saying, "Damn it, I'm important. Like, you need to look at me because I'm worth looking at." And, like, isn't that what we want for all of our kids, for our kids to have this internal sense of value? And so I would encourage dads, as you've felt that, don't feel condemned, but feel encouraged that your kid likes you and your kid thinks they're valuable. But when we start to get nervous, and this is really when the alarm bells should start going off, if our kids stop saying that to us, if our kids stop saying, "Daddy, put down your phone," because what that means is they believe they're not worth being looked at anymore. Their internal sense of value is deteriorated to such a point that they don't even think it's worth asking, because their brains, as we all know, like, their brains are forming so quickly, and the neural pathways and everything's getting formed. And so at some point they're going to believe, "The last time I asked Dad to look at me, he didn't look at me. The last time I banged on the glass, Mom didn't look at me." And so what's the point? I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm probably not worth being looked at. And I don't want that for my kids. I know you don't want that for your kids. I don't think anybody listening to the Dad Edge wants that for their kids. And so we have this freaking awesome opportunity right now. And this is all opportunity, no condemnation. We have this amazing opportunity by setting aside our phones, by putting them down, whether it's an Aro box or not, I don't care, but you can live a lifestyle of Aro, whether you have an Aro box or not, it doesn't matter to me. But if you put that down and look at your kids, we have no idea like the infinite power there is in that simple little act. You know what I mean?
I told, yeah, that actually kind of kills me inside to hear that a little bit, that if your kid isn't saying that they no longer feel that they're worthy of your attention. Like that should set into everybody's heart a little bit.
We have that power. Isn't that amazing? As
we do.
Fathers, we have that power. Man, I want to use that power well.
You know what's really fascinating is that I'm going to leave names out, but there is someone close to me in my life that I feel that way. You know, and I'll leave it at that because I think this person listens to the show. And I don't think he has any idea, but there are times where, to be honest, like I'm working with a coach myself. Every year I work with a coach, always. Like I'm always working with somebody. And my coach that I'm working with this year, he's got a thing that he does to people. He's like, if anyone is on their phone while we're having a conversation and they check it, I stop talking. I just completely stop talking, and I'll just look at them and wait for them to be off their phone. And then once they're done, I'll start talking again. He's like, because it's fascinating. Like I never even have to say, hey, that's rude, or hey, can you get off your phone? He's like, anytime I ever do that, they're like, oh, I'm sorry. Like they'll apologize, and then they'll put the phone like to the side sometimes. But I have somebody in my life, very important to me. And when we're together, like there are some times I feel like the most unimportant person at the table, you know, and it's and to be honest, the person shouldn't be displaying that kind of behavior, but it is what it is. I would love for you to just share some stories of you've been doing this now for a while. You've owned this company for a while.
Yeah.
I would love for you to share some stories of like even some before and afters.
Yeah.
Like that'd be great.
I'll start it with a personal one. And
okay.
I just read this. This is great. I read this in my journal. I have a 5-year journal. So you have a little entry, 5 lines every day for 5 years in a row. So May 8th, 2020, my daughter, Gianna. So Gianna would have been 9 at the time. So my daughter, she's 14. Anyway, she'd been 10 at the time. She's 14 now. So we had just finished watching a Harry Potter movie together, and she turned to me at the end of the movie and she said, and Larry, it was factual. This was not patting me on my back. It was not judgmental. She just said, she goes, Daddy, did you know that's the first time we've watched a movie and you haven't had your phone? And that was it. And I was like it was a little bit of a gut punch, but there was another side of it, which was like, oh, this is great. So we started the business. We were kind of beta testing, prototyping at that time. So I'd been using Aro for about 6 months or so. And so it was a little bit of a gut punch, like, holy crap, have I messed things up this badly for 10 years? But there was another side that was like, okay, this is great. Like, I feel like this is progress. So I told my daughter that story. So I read this the other day, and I told her, I said, hey, Gianna, I just read my journal. Do you remember that time when you said that to me? And she goes, oh, I do remember that. And then she laughed. And she goes, it would be so weird if you had your phone during a movie now. And I was like, bro, wow. I have in 4 years completely reshaped what's normal for her just by putting down my phone. It was so notable to her because our kids, you think about the term notice, like we said earlier, our kids are freaking notice machines. That's all they do when they're young. All they do, they're noticing so they can adapt, notice, adapt. So they're noticing what's happening so they can adapt to their environment. So it was not her. It was very normal for her at 10 years old when she and I were to do something special together, where it was just us, for me to be distracted, checking a text, checking an email, whatever it was. And it was so notable to her that I didn't have my phone, that she said something. And then 4 years later, it would be so notable to her if I did have my phone. And that to me, like, and she didn't have a phone yet. Like, this is like, Aro is really built for families with kids who don't have phones, because then you can kind of reshape what's normal for them. So that's one of my favorite ones. I had another one. This is actually a Dad Edge. I'm meaning to tell you the story. A Dad Edge member. So we were on last time, and a guy from Dad Edge, he joined, and he emailed us in, and he told us a story about 18 minutes that he said completely changed his life. So obviously, I'm intrigued. He said he walked down the stairs one morning. His son was at the breakfast bar, 8-year-old son, eating his cereal. And he said normally he would just check his phone, scroll the news, whatever it was, but he put his phone in the Aro box. This is the first morning he had it. And then he had an 18-minute conversation with his son that changed his life. So like the natural question is, holy crap, what did you talk about? So he talked about two things. One, he talked about sharts, the word shart, which I normally for a family audience, Larry, I normally say sharks, but we can talk about sharks here. So he talked about sharts. They talked about sharts together. And the second one, they just talked about how things get invented. And that was it. But he had this realization. He said, if I did this every morning, this little daily deposit, my son, Julian is his son's name. Julian's 8 now. If I give 18 minutes every morning, 18 minutes every morning, minutes every morning, what will that deposit do in the life of his son? So it's that 18-minute conversation. And that's what's cool about all this discussion is we want to, as dads, we want to overcomplicate things. We want to do the big grand gestures.
Yep.
And we all know, to your point on fitness, sometimes it's just the 30 minutes in the gym. Sometimes it's just those little things, the little daily deposit, the little look in the eyes. I mean, that whole thing, you think about kids, like they're so wired for connection. They crave it so badly. And by the way, this is why, and I hate to disparage, but I don't think the guys in this generation listening to this show probably have kids necessarily, but in who are really in the anxiety generation, maybe they do. But I believe that this generation of kids right now, and Jonathan Haidt just wrote a book called The Anxious Generation that is, taking the world by storm, about how social media and phones have really infiltrated our kids' lives. But I believe that this generation of kids, 15, 16, 17 years old, who have anxiety through the roof, largely it's attributed to the fact that they've had parents who have looked at screens instead of their eyes. And now we know better. Now we know that power of looking in the eyes, and we know the power of what happens when you put down your phone and really focus on the people around you. And we hear stories like this every week. And I really do know that this right here, this single act of putting down your phone for the sake of a relationship, even for just 18 minutes, is absolutely culture shifting within your home.
I 100% agree. When you said the parents who aren't looking at their kids in the eyes, like that, think about that. I mean, think about how unimportant you probably feel if that is your life,
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, that's tough, man. Cause I kick myself in the rear end because of God only knows how many times I've probably made my kids feel that way, over the years. And to be honest, like I said, I'm not perfect at this. Like I'm still screwing it up. I guarantee I am. And they're probably not telling me. I mean, sometimes they call me out on it.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Well, it's easy for us then because we're such fixers in general. Dads, we're such fixers, and it's easy then to get dragged down in the muck of what we've done before, and say, God, man, I really do suck at this. And I get that. But if we can instead use that to just like as a moment, say like, but I can do better today, because you said the power of eye contact. That's available to all of us, regardless of your income level, regardless of what you do for a living, regardless of what you've done before. Like today, it's available. Like literally today, it's available for all of us. Unless you're traveling, you won't see your family. Then you can do it on FaceTime, use a phone for good. But we have this opportunity today to do this. So if anybody starts feeling this and processing this through like, I suck, like it's okay to realize your propensity to do things the wrong way. Jordan Peterson talks about like a man can only be good, can only project light if he knows his darkness. And I know my darkness. I know all the ways that I have a tendency to trail off and fail. I know those things. And because I know those things, I can fight against them to say, no, this is what I'm going to do today. I'm going to go make eye contact with both my kids. And I'm going to talk with them about what's important to them. I'm going to sit with my wife and I'm going to let her tell me about her day. And I'm going to tell her about my day. We're just going to look at each other in the eyes. And that right there, I'll say it again, is available today, no matter who you are.
I love that, man. What about the parents that think like, well, this is just the way the world works, or maybe it's too late for me? Like, phones are, my kids have devices too. They're always on it. So, maybe what's the big deal? And I'll say, while you think about that, I want to admit something. So I'm the only one in my family that uses this right now. And here's why. I've been using this now for a while, and I didn't want it to be, well, actually I take that back. My oldest is now tinkering with it, but he's sort of like hot and cold with it, but that's okay, because it's kind of part of my diabolical plan, because I figure if I force it on them, then it's more like they'll sort of despise it. Right. So what I've been doing is I purposely and sort of publicly, I'm like, oh, it's my Aro time. And I'll go put the phone in there.
Love it.
And then, or I'll be like, hey, can you do me a favor? Can you put daddy's phone in the Aro for me?
Come on.
And what I'm trying to do is just give them curiosity. And then I'll say things like, man, you know what? It's like, what I've noticed since I've been doing more Aro time is like my stress level's gone down. Like I actually feel better. Like I'm more calm. I'm more patient. Like here's the other thing too. You'll probably find this humorous. So I have 3 other coaches that I run what we call the Dad Edge business boardroom. So that's for our Dad Edge, or it's our dad business owner mastermind. And part of my accountability is racking up certain amount of hours every week. And every Thursday I have to report my Aro hours.
Nice.
And I said this to my colleagues. I think it was like probably 2 or 3 months ago. I was like, dude, like being away from the phone for like 4 or 5 hours, sometimes, like I always thought like I would be so overwhelmed with the amount of things that I would have to respond to, the emails or texts or whatever, or social, I was going to miss something or whatever else. And I was like, you guys want to hear something crazy? And they're like, yeah. I was like, I don't miss anything. In fact, everything actually slows down, which is telling me something, that I have a theory on this. I am actually the instigator of my busyness and stress when it comes to my phone. Like it's the stuff I send out. And now suddenly people are, they have to reply to me. But if I don't do that, not nearly as much stuff comes in. So I'm always like pleasantly surprised. I'll be away from my phone for like 4 hours, and I'll check it. I have like 2 text messages. I'm like, oh my God, like I would have thought I had 10 or like 15, or like how many emails do I have? Oh, I only have 3 emails. What? Like, so it's really interesting. Like just the experiment, that I wouldn't even call it. I would call it a lifestyle now. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, it's partially like, it's a little bit of a sobering thing. Like you're a busy guy. Like you have like a lot of fellas listen to you. And even then, like we're not getting a bunch of stuff. In a way, it makes us realize that it's almost like we view our importance. We have this self-perception of importance to the world at large, ignoring how like irreplaceably important we are at home. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We are irreplaceable. The only job that no one else can do is be father to your children, right? Like that's only yours. Like it's the only, I mean, we have like a very amazing opportunity as spouses, but as fathers, like that's it. Only one person can be the father to our children. That's us. So it's a really cool opportunity for us to do that. And what you've touched on right there, which I love. So we talk about 4 ways to change your relationship with your phone, and you just hit on the very first one, which again, I promise you, this is unprompted, but which we say is we are all, in a way, it's easy to blame a lot of people for the phone stuff. It's very easy to say, well, those social media companies, their algorithms, man, that's really what's the problem. Or, hey, Apple, they're really making, they make it so addictive. Or, my spouse is on the phone all the time. My kids are on the phone all the time. Hold on one second. We have to start with ourselves. We have to stop blaming anybody else, and we have to start with ourselves. And if we can get that right, and exactly what you just said, we're going to create this like more presence. And guess what's going to happen? You're going to be more magnetic to your kids when you're more present with them. And so the natural outflow will be, I want to hang out with dad. Like, let's go jump on the trampoline now. When you make yourself more available, more present to them. So the very first way to change your relationship with your phone, and this is kind of a play on Simon Sinek's start with why, is start with I. You got to start with yourself and say, am I the type of person here that I want other people to be? Right? Because the relationship with our phones generally works something like this. The way we parent when it comes to phone, we call these the 3 M's, is we as parents, and I'll say we as dads, or I as a Joey, the dad, I model a relationship a bad relationship with my phone. And then my kids, I give them a phone and then they mimic what I've modeled to them. And then we do something absolutely crazy as parents. The third M is that we get mad at our kids for mimicking what we've modeled to them.
Right.
Which is insane. But where do you think they learn this stuff? Like they learned it by watching us look at our phones, at stoplights. They learned it by us looking at our phones when they're trying to talk to us. Because to your point, your friend who does this to you a bunch, and this is maybe a weird term to use in that context, but the term intimacy, just the closeness between two people, that is being deteriorated by all the times we look at our phones and conversations. I think relationships are dying. It's a death by 1,000 glances. Just us glancing at our phone, just those little minimal things we think they don't notice. We know our kids notice. We know our spouses notice. And when we do that to our kids begin to stop opening up to us because they know the last time they did it, the last time they opened up to us, well, dad looked at his phone and it kind of, I was kind of opening up and it kind of hurt my feelings. And so we're killing these relationships, these death by 1,000 glances. But to your point, which I absolutely love, is you have to start with yourself. You have to stop blaming others. It is your relationship with the phone that is causing the issue. And if everybody took that approach, we wouldn't have a phone issue anymore. If everybody said, okay, this is my problem that I have to solve for myself.
Well, congratulations. You just came up with the title of the show. Death by 1,000 glances.
Death by 1,000 glances.
That is so true though. I mean, like even like the, glancing down, glancing. It's true. I mean, it's time and attention away. So you said that there was 4 and it begins with us, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Can you keep going with that?
Yeah, for sure. The second one, and by just a quick backup, when I say relationship with our phones, I'm using the term relationship very, very specifically, but we need to recognize that it's really weird that we have a relationship with an object. That's just weird, right? Except for kids. Kids have relationships with objects. They have relationship with blankies and pacifiers and all this stuff. Those are called comfort objects that give them comfort when their parents are away. Basically, they cling to these things. And so in the first time since us being toddlers, basically, we're back to clinging to an object. We have a relationship with an object. Now, in childhood, those are good things because they progress you towards independence. For us, we're clinging to this and it's kind of devolving us towards isolation. So that's not good. And so it's weird we have a relationship. But if we look at it as a relationship, say, okay, I can change this relationship. And when I change this relationship, I'll change the relationship with the people all around me. So the 4 ways to do that. Again, 1, start with yourself. The second one is very prescriptive. I want everybody to spend 1 hour a day away from their phones, physically distant from their phones, 1 hour a day. So the reason that's important, and it may sound very, very basic, but our relationship with our phones is dictated by our proximity to them. Everything begins with our proximity to our phones. And I alluded to it earlier. 91% of us have our phones with us 24 hours a day with us. Science tells us the only way to reduce your smartphone usage is for it to be physically distant from you and out of your visual field of sight, period. That's the only way to reduce it, right? So if we spend 1 hour a day, I want that to be kind of your goal. Now, people may be on either side of that spectrum. And so if you haven't ever done that, begin with 5 minutes a day and build up to the hour, right? So let's think of this as building a muscle. Let's think of this as a long-term, almost like you're training for a marathon, maybe, is you're building up your mileage to get to the 26 miles, right? So if you've not done any time, start with 5 minutes, build up to 10, 20, 30, 45, an hour, get to an hour. If you're on the other side of that and be like, I can do that. Okay, we'll start building that muscle even more. Spend a little bit more time. You mentioned, big numbers earlier, 4 or 5 hours a day. That's absolutely possible. You're talking to the guy who had never done this. I had never spent time away from my phone. My average every day is about 3 hours and 15 minutes away from my phone, physically distant. That doesn't count at nights. I keep my phone away from me at night, but in waking hours, 3 hours and 15 minutes away from my phone is my average. The Aro app tracks that, so I know exactly how much time that is, so I can kind of build up to that. So that's the second one, is spend an hour a day away from your phone every single day, and then build up to if you need, and build more if you're already beyond that. So that's 2. The third one in your home is I want to think about this term of something being sacred. So you think of anything being sacred, something that's sacred is a common object that we have deemed sacred, right? So any kind of religious artifact, we have said this common object we're deeming as sacred. And we have an opportunity in our homes to deem things sacred. And I want you in your home to come up with a sacred time and a sacred place that are phone free. Sacred time, sacred place. So in the mornings, I'll give some examples of what people do sometimes. A lot of people say the 30 minutes after I wake up in the morning, that is a sacred time. Or the 30 minutes before I go to bed, that's a sacred time. Those are just phone-free times. So what's a sacred time you can have? A sacred place, this is where you can get really fun with the sacred place. Sacred place, the most common one is the dinner table. And that's so easy. That is low-hanging fruit for you to just say, hey, we're all going to put our phones over here during dinner. We're going to put, if you have an Aro box, we're going to put them in the Aro box, or we're going to put them in this drawer, because our time is sacred right here. Now, then come up with some, kind of prompting questions, do high lows at dinner, whatever that is. If your kids are young, this is someone, I forget who told me this, but I love this one. Their child's bedroom is a sacred place. So they never bring their phone into their child's room, which, what a cool thing. Like, what a cool thing for your child to know that dad's all here when he's in my room. When it's story time, dad's all here. Here's another one. I mentioned my son Harrison, who's 16 in a couple weeks. He and I have a bet that neither of us can take our phones into the bathroom with us. So if I take my phone in the bathroom, I owe him $5. I've known him owe him $5. If he takes his phone in the bathroom, he has to give me a 5-minute foot rub, which is the currency of all dads, or foot rubs, right? And shoulder rubs. So he has to give me like a foot rub or shoulder rub if he takes his phone in. And what's hilarious about that, Larry, is I'll be sitting there, and I think I can say this. I'll be sitting on the can and realize, holy crap, I'm looking at my phone again. What have I done? Like, it's such a thing that's just natural and instinctive to do until you start thinking about it. So the toilet can be your sacred place, which is very fun. And I'll say this also, especially when Harrison's getting this age, there's nothing like accountability with your kids. Because if it's like with your bros, you know what I mean? Like, you can make an exception. Yeah, man, I kind of messed up with your kid. They're just like, hold on, Dad. You said you didn't want to take your phone in the bathroom. So that's a fun one. That's been a good one for me. And then the last one. So to recap again, start with yourself. Spend an hour away from your phone every day. Establish sacred times and sacred places in your home. And then the fourth is my favorite, which is seek out moments of connection. And here's what I mean by that. And that may sound very basic. That really may sound very basic, but you're seeking out these moments. And back to the Gottman, like the noticing what's happening all around you. A lot of times our kids or our spouses, we could pick up on things that are really kind of indetectable. Like, maybe my daughter walks in, their shoulders are a little bit slumped. Or if my son says something like, tennis practice was really tough today. Or my wife says, oh, this is a really rough week. I feel like we're in a tough patch. Those little things that we could actually, maybe even be too overt, that we could breeze by, that we could brush by. But if instead I said to my daughter, it's like, hey, is something wrong? And the moment she begins to open up, the moment she goes, well, I say the six words, and this is going to sound a little bit sad, but the 6 most powerful words in a relationship in 2024. And that's this: let me put down my phone. And it sounds basic, Larry. It sounds very basic, but here's what you're really saying. When you take your phone and you physically put it somewhere else because your daughter wants to talk about something, what's that telling her? That's saying to her, Dad's all in with you right now.
Yep.
That's telling her, on this phone right here, there are theoretically 8 billion people who can reach me on it. And Gianna, you're more important than every single one of them. So what does that do for a 14-year-old girl? What does that do to her internal sense of value? What does that do the next time maybe she gets picked on, or maybe she, gets into some body comparison online or something like that, and she starts feeling bad about herself? That instills that foundational sense of value that says, no, I know if all else fails, I know my dad loves me. I know that I'm important to my dad. I know that my dad's eyes are fixed on me. What does that do? What does that do for a girl like that? What does that do for my son, a young man, in becoming a good man? What does that do for him? What does that do for intimacy in a marriage? Just by that small act, let me put down my phone, physically removing your phone and being all in with that person. So seeking out those moments, we can be investigators of our relationships and seek out those moments and give those 6 powerful words that will absolutely change a relationship.
Yeah, I love that. That is, those 4 things are so simple yet so powerful. Truly remarkable, man.
Yeah. And accessible.
I love that.
Accessible. All of it.
Yeah.
Today. I mean, like, all of us can do it. Like, obviously, like, we think that we've built a system that makes it easy, but I don't care if you have it or not. I really don't. This is for anybody today. You can implement these literally today. They're as accessible as anything else, and they will change your relationships.
So I know how Aro works because I've been using it for a while, but tell the audience, how does this work?
Yeah. So Aro is an entire platform for the family. We are the only platform. This is shocking to say, the only platform for digital wellness, for family wellness that focuses on the entire family. So for everyone, this is literally the Aro box is a beautiful home decor piece that you put in your phone. I'm sorry, that you put in your home. And really what it does, and you know this, Larry, it kind of sits almost as a representation of who you would like to be, who your values are. In our home, it's, hey, the Odom family, we're present. And this thing sits in there and it holds your phone. When you put your phone in the Aro box, it automatically connects to an app that begins to quantify the amount of time that you're away from your phone. So you're effectively gamifying the experience of being away from your phone. And the Aro app, which we just did a huge new release, which is absolute dynamite, it really gamifies it. It shows you, hey, what's your daily goal? Have you achieved that? Have you connected your rings? What day streak are you on? How are you comparing your home? The kind of the leaderboard within your home. You can do the look back after each session. You can tag it to say what you're doing. So I can go look at my app right now, and I will say that this year I've had 36 hours. Last 30 days I've had 36 hours of family time, because I know that because I've tagged it, and that's totally phone free. And dude, that feels really good to know, like, here's what I've done with my time. And so that's a little reward, a little pat on your back. So we're gamifying the experience of being away from your phone. And this is the sort of thing when people think like, okay, well, so I'm just putting my phone in a box, right? Which, yes, that's it. And none of us, which if someone can do that on their own, we highly encourage it. But it is that gamified system that makes it something that you can continue to replicate. So we liken it, to your point, we liken it to fitness as well. Like, we can all burn calories for free. We can all build muscle for free. You can run around the neighborhood, do push-ups, pull-ups, everything at your home. Yet, most of us belong to gyms. Most of us are paying money to a gym because we know how valuable exercise is. We know how difficult exercise is. So we need help removing the friction of doing something difficult that we know is valuable. And it's the same exact way with Aro. So this is really for the person who said, yeah, I've tried some stuff and it's not really working. Yeah, I've tried a basket and it doesn't really work. Yeah, I've tried a drawer, or I've tried, XYZ app. This is for that person who's tried and has struggled with it. And I will make a promise, and this is very definitive, and I have some bias, but I only know this because of what I've seen in my life and from the thousands of people who have told us this will change your life. There's no doubt about it. This will change your life. If this is something you've struggled with, this is the answer. This helps you get away from your phone and go solve that core relationship with your phone. And I'll say it again, because when you change your relationship with your phone, you change your relationship with everyone around you, and that includes yourself. So that's what Aro is built for. Aro is, as of now, we're going to go through a little bit of a pricing structure change later in the year, but for now, it's a monthly membership, and you don't have to pay anything up front to buy the box. So you prepay for the year. You don't have to buy the box separately. We will have later in the year where you can subscribe to the software alone without the box. But for now, you get the box along with it. You don't have to pay anything for the box. It's just an all up front for your year membership. And you've seen it. And other Dad Edge guys, we had a ton of people last time we were on, Dad Edge guys come on, and we continue to hear stories about it. And last thing I'll say about it, Larry, is that about 70% of our orders are from moms. So only about 30% from dads. And
okay. I want to comment on that when you're done. Good, keep going.
Well, it's disappointing to me, and I can say this.
Yeah.
Us dads, we don't mind getting punched in the face every now and then. We got to be leading. We got to lead better. We got to lead our homes better. This is for us to say. And here's the real sad part. This actually pisses me off. The rare time we do get a return, and we get a few, and we have very low returns, but the few times we do, we ask why, and the answer is almost universal. It's a wife saying, I couldn't get my husband on board.
Really?
And you think, bro, your wife has brought something into your home to enhance the intimacy in your marriage, to provide a better future for your families. You better get on board with that. And even better, you better lead this charge as a dad to set the culture in your home. I'd love to hear your take on that, Larry.
I mean, it's disappointing, but I also, like I said, the guy who's been pretty bad at this in the past is the one I stare at in the mirror, and stuff like that. So I understand the struggle without a doubt, but it does, I guess it would, I encourage guys, like, part of our job, I think, as men is to lead, right. Yeah. And to protect. And of course we're providers and all those things, right? But we lead. And this is why I haven't like done a full court press with having my kids
Yeah.
do it because I just want to be that example. And if
Love
they
it.
follow suit, great. And truly, I hope that they do.
Mm.
We have other parameters that we put on their phones, but at the same time, like there's something about it being out of sight, out of mind, not
Yeah.
even like in your pocket or on the counter or anything like that. That's one thing I've noticed. Going back to what I was saying, I encourage more men to do that because I
Yeah.
think men will be pleasantly surprised. I can't remember what the stats are for like church, right? But if a man goes to church, his kids, I think again, I might be butchering the statistics. I just know it's very high. I think it's 80% of kids will continue to go to church in their adult life if the dad
Wow.
goes, right? So like, but that's just, I mean, that's one example of a statistic, right?
Yeah.
But that's an encouraging example of like if a dad is doing something or he's in a
Yeah.
practice of doing something, a lot of times the kids will follow suit by example.
Yeah.
So yeah, I encourage men, hey, step up and do this, especially
Yeah.
I the other thing that before I started using Aro, when I started using Aro, I was like, I can't ask my kids to do something I'm not willing to do.
Yeah.
Right. And I can't tell my kids to put their phone down unless they see me doing it.
Yeah.
Right. And to be
Right.
honest, like I used to be bad at it, really
Yeah.
bad at it. So yeah, I encourage guys. I wanna share something, and then I would love for you to share,
Yeah.
what does the pricing look like for this
Yeah.
and how I mean, we have a page for these guys. If you guys
Yeah.
go to thedadedge.com/ARO, you'll have, all the information, but I want you to just remind us what the pricing is and all
Yeah.
that. But I wanna share this. So I looked at it today, and I didn't even know on the app how I could do this, but I'm actually bummed because I think it would be more, but um, my quote unquote sacred time, I guess you could say,
Mhm.
is my window of time is usually 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. every
Yeah.
day. Basically, family time, right? That's like my sacred time. Now, I will tell you that my minimum goal every night is an hour, right?
Mhm.
I try to shoot for 3 or
Yep.
4 if I'm really, really good about it. But I just looked today, and as of 2024, and you and I are recording on the day after Mother's Day, May 13th, and I'm just shy of 9 days away from my phone, like not even hours, days. So I'm
Let's
like, oh my
go.
gosh, like almost 200, almost 240 hours, like one more day, it'd be 240 hours. And I was like, oh my God, have I really racked up that many? But I really wish I would have I really wish I would have done my due diligence and know that I didn't have to have the phone in the box because there have been so many times where I've put the phone down or I've left it in the car at an event or something like that. I'm like, okay, well, I'm just mentally like, this is our time. So
Yeah.
I don't know what it would be, but like call it, I don't know, 30% more, maybe. I don't know. But I'll tell you, it's been a game changer for me. I mean, I would love for my family to follow suit with it.
Yeah.
But again, I'm not going to force it on them. But I love the gamifying aspect.
Yeah.
Like one thing I've noticed now that I know about dopamine and all that, like the gamifying aspect about the app and like getting like the kudos and like, hey, great job on your streak, or you just got 3 more hours or whatever else. There are times too where someone will call me, or I'm sorry, they won't call me, but there are times where I will go check the phone for a minute if I'm expecting something or something's urgent. And then it'll say end your session, which I end the session, but then I'll put it right back down again. So I'm like, I
Mhm.
want to get more minutes or I want to get another
Yeah.
hour. Right. So I'll do that too. So I want to encourage people, if you're going to use Aro, keep in mind that it doesn't necessarily have to be like this block, right,
Yeah.
of time. You can still go get more time if you really want
Mhm.
to. But yeah,
Yeah.
but if you could refresh us on
Yeah.
what the pricing looks like and all that good stuff for our audience, that'd be great.
Well, one thing, just to you, dude, freaking 9 days physically distant from your phone, from a guy who said he's sucked at it in the past. That's incredible. Like that's
Thanks, man.
what an amazing thing to do. Like what an amazing gift. And even though you haven't, necessarily gotten the credit, quote unquote, for the time that it's been away from you, you've gotten the real reward, obviously, which is that full presence, being there without your phone. So, dude, that is absolutely incredible. And that's something you can go back in the days where you say, like, man, am I slipping? Am I not being the best at? Hold on one second. I got the numbers right here. I got the freaking scoreboard on this app that tells me how present I've been, which I love. So our pricing for RO is Again, all right now, it's a monthly membership, nothing up front. You prepay for an annual membership, and if you do that, that's $180. That's $15 a month. You can prepay a 2-year membership, and that's $12 a month. And we do have, again, you can link it in the show notes, but we do have a special Dad Edge discount code as well for all the guys out there with Dad Edge. Just use Dad Edge at checkout, and you get a discount exclusive to you guys at Dad Edge. And it's because, like we've said it before, because we want dads to lead. We want this community to lead. This is the most intentional community of dads that we have found is the Dad Edge community. And you're listening to this because you care and you do want to get that extra 1%. And so we want to help with that. That's why we've extended the discount because we know you can win. We know this is accessible, and we know that this will make a difference in your life.
That's awesome, man. And I should know this, but I don't. But what is our discount?
I should know it as well. As I was saying, I was like, crap, I didn't hope you didn't. I forget exactly what it is. I think it's a free month for the 1 year, and I think it's 2 free months for the 2 year, I believe.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for that. And do the guys just type in the code?
Yeah, Dad Edge.
Okay.
All one word at checkout.
Awesome. Well, guys, we'll have a link in the show notes for you. Like I said, but if you guys head on over to dadedge.com/Aro, that's ARO. That if that coupon code's not in there, it should automatically default in there. But if it's not, just type it in there. And like Joey said, you guys will get those free months. I will tell you this, like, I love the fact, like, it's basically, like a Planet Fitness membership. Since we were talking about gyms, right? Planet Fitness is like the cheapest gym on the planet, right?
I love it.
And but I'll tell you guys, like, listen, I'm telling you this from my heart. Like, I love partnering with you guys. I'm very, 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 very choosy. There isn't probably a week or two that goes by that I don't get an email, be like, oh, could you promote this? Can you promote, like, and I'll tell you, we got you guys, a couple others, First Form and Bark. I mean, that's really it. These are our 3 partners, and we partner with these companies for absolute good reasons, because of the integrity. It's because they're aligned with our vision. They're aligned with our mission. We want you guys to make memories out there. We want you guys to be present, right? And listen, I know what it feels like for your kid to look you in the eye and be like, Dad, can you get off your phone? Or Dad, did you even hear me? Like, and you just feel like a piece of crap, right?
Yeah.
Like, and so that's happened more times than it should. And there's, like I said, truth be told, like, I still fall into bad habits every now and again. But when I saw that, I was like, wow, like, freaking 9 days and 5 months away from my phone. That's pretty good. So I do feel good about that. And I encourage you guys, man, hey, lead your family, right? Yeah. Even if the kids won't follow suit or your wife doesn't follow suit, like, how cool is it that Dad's doing something like that? Like, let's do this kind of stuff together, man. I appreciate you, Joey. Thank you.
Larry, thank you, bro. Appreciate it.
All right, gentlemen, head on over to dadedge.com/Friday 161 for this show. We'll have links in there for the Aro app. Like I said, the dadedge.com/Aro. We'll also have Joey's social handles in there, as well as just any information on today's show, and also the four benefits of Aro time. Never thought I'd actually title a show, Joey, Death by 1,000 Glances, but today we're doing it, man.
I love it. I love it.
Love you, man. Thank you for coming.
Thanks, bro.
on.
You too, man.
Bye-bye.